Mummies have been the antagonists of horror-based media since Western societies discovered them. We have to admit, dead bodies drained of fluids and wrapped in linens can be pretty bone-chilling. However, the process itself is much more than just wrapping up bodies. It involves advanced scientific understanding of human biology and often indicates complex beliefs surrounding the afterlife. Many cultures spanning the globe were practitioners of mummification, and, though it is largely a lost practice, we remain fascinated by the profound scientific knowledge of the peoples who have practiced it. The most recognizable method of mummification comes from ancient Egypt, dating back to 3500 BCE. In this method, a metal rod was first pushed through the nasal cavity to the skull. From there, the rod was manipulated in a manner that liquefied the brain tissue, which was then drained through the nose. The rest of the organs were then removed, and the hollow body was cleaned with a mixture of spices and palm wine. The soon-to-be mummy was placed in natron, naturally occurring salt, and left to dry for 40 days. After the flesh was dehydrated, the body was wrapped in layers upon layers of linen, between which priests placed amulets to aid the newly deceased in the afterlife. A top coat of resin was applied to ensure protection from moisture, and then the mummified body was placed in a coffin and sealed in a tomb. The extent of ornamentation, the style of tomb, and the care taken during the mummification process differed on the basis of the recently deceased's social class. You may associate all ancient mummies with the Egyptians, but the earliest evidence of embalming was actually found in the remains of the Chinchorro peoples, who resided in what is now modern-day Chile. Unlike the Egyptians who mummified on the basis of class, the Chinchorro exhibited an egalitarian method of preserving the dead. What's even more interesting is that though they were mummifying 2,000 years before the Egyptians were, their methods were more advanced. The Chinchorro approach to mummification was lengthy. First, a body was relieved of its skin, flesh, organs, and brain. The bones, now exposed, were then taken apart and burnt with hot ash so as to remove any liquid that would allow for decay. They were then reassembled with twigs for support. The newly formed bone-twig skeleton was bound tightly with reeds, and then the skin was reapplied to the body, supplemented with the skin of sea lions or pelicans as required. An ash paste was then painted over the body to ensure stability, and the face was covered in a clay mask. The finishing touch involved either black or ochre paint, which was applied to the entirety of the newly mummified body, most likely for reasons of conformity and equality. Oddly enough, you don't need to die for the process of mummification to begin. Between the 11th Hausthuth and the 19th century, a school of Buddhism in Yamagata, Japan, called Shingon, included members who practiced a method of enlightenment called Sokushinbutsu. Sokushinbutsu was, in the simplest of terms, self-mummification. Monks, over a period of 3 to 10 years, followed a diet called Mokujikigyo, or tree eating. During this 1,000-day diet, monks ate only pine needles, nuts, roots, and buds from trees, which rid the body of fat and muscle and delayed decomposition after death. After Mokujikigyo, monks removed food from their diet completely and drank solely salt water for 100 days, which shrank their organs and further mummified them alive. When a monk felt death approaching, fellow monks would place him in a pine box at the bottom of a pit. The box would be covered in charcoal, with a small bamboo shoot through the top for air. After the monk's death, the tomb's airway was removed and the box was sealed. 1,000 days later, it was reopened and examined for evidence of bodily decay. If any was found, an exorcism was performed and the body was buried again. If not, the mummy would be enshrined. There are various other cultures that have practiced mummification outside of the 3 detailed here, including populations in Africa, Hungary, and Australia, and there are even cultures and individuals that practice it today. While many of us may see mummification as the stuff of horror films, understanding how and why people practice mummification can help us to further understand our own burial practices and those of cultures which utilized and still utilize mummification today.